Prior to this year, have you ever been through anything like this?
Well, so I have a degenerative disease, and 29 years ago, I was still walking. It wasn't on a ventilator or anything. My condition has just slowly progressed, but I've been in a power chair for 15 years and 24/7 on a ventilator for about 5 years. So, I've seen power outages, and there was this in-between period where I was using a BiPAP machine at night, and if the power went out, I couldn't sleep. So I'd lose a night of sleep, but that wasn't a big deal. But that scenario is very different now. I'm completely dependent on electric devices to live. So, my wheelchair can go 2 days on one charge if I'm not doing a whole lot. But after that, I have to charge it, and it takes about 7 hours to charge. My ventilator, it uses, when I'm out in the world like this, it uses exchangeable batteries that will run about 4 hours. And it takes about 3.5 hours to charge a 4-hour battery. So when I'm without power, I'm playing a shell game with time. And if the chair or the vent run out and I don't have a means to recharge them, I have to admit myself to the hospital because, I can't live without them. So that's just the reality of it.
You used the phrase "you're a dead man" earlier. Is that? I mean, you weren't over exaggerating.
Seriously, I can be off my vent. I take off my mask when I shower, and I have to have people help me shower. But I can be off my vent for 20 minutes or a half hour. But at the end of that time, I am exhausted, and my saturation levels are dropping. During that period. So I can be off it, but, if I were off my vent for an hour, I'd be saturating down at, 90%, 85%, moving into headaches and panic. And, I'm sure within an hour or two, my body would collapse. So, I have to be ventilated.
When you say saturation level, are you talking about oxygen level in your
Oxygen, yeah, my oxygen level in my blood. Right. And I have, a little thing you wear on your finger that tells you, with a ventilator, I saturate at about 100%. You take it off, that number starts to tick down pretty quick. Because, my disease is late onset Pompe disease, which is a rare genetic disease, and it results in muscle wasting that has taken place over the course of my life. And among the muscles that are compromised is my diaphragm, which pumps your lungs. So I have perfectly healthy lungs, but if I don't have the muscles pumping it, so the ventilator it's a mechanical diaphragm. So it's basically doing what my diaphragm can't. And if you remove that from the equation, no matter how good my lungs are, they won't work if I don't have the device to pump them. So, yeah.
You said in that 20 to 30 minutes when you're showering, your diaphragm has just enough energy to let you breathe a little bit. But like you said, your levels go down. So that's when you say, okay, I need to get back on this now.
Yeah, well, exactly. And my care providers who help me shower, we have it down to a science. I mean, there is no talking when I'm in the shower. We get me in there, it's like, okay, you ready? Mask off, shower on, shampoo, soap, rinse, mask back on, and then we move on with the routine. So,
Waste of time, right?
yeah, I mean, it's a time game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the last power outage was it was traumatic, but only in hindsight did you realize really just how traumatic it was. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm aware First off, I live alone. I live a very independent life. I'm out in the world. I'm able to drive. I have a van that will work with my chair, and I live a active, normal life. But you do take for granted. I take for granted how much my lifestyle is completely dependent on electrical power, because when that becomes jeopardized, my focus on what I'm doing for the day turns to survival mode. And when an outage, at least we know these are coming. Um, I make sure all of my batteries are charged up. I keep a dozen batteries for my ventilator, which is, assuming everything goes smoothly, that's 48 hours of time. But that means when you're sleeping at night, every few hours the alarm goes off. You have to wake up, swap a battery, try to go back to sleep. A few hours later, the alarms go off. And just the, latent anxiety of all of that, you don't just fall right back to sleep, and you do wake up in a panic. So the last outage, I did all the things I would normally do, all the things able-bodied people do. I have to have flashlights and food, and making sure I've got enough water ready to go, and make sure I'm in touch with my support system. So if anything goes wrong, I've got people that are on standby. But the last outage required that I spent full days charging batteries just so I had enough reserve to get through the night. And that's those three, and I was out of power for 3 full days. So, when that event came on, I was just like in this get things done mode, just get things done, get the batteries charged. How much time do I have on my chair before I have to plug that in? Where am I going to go to get it done? And really, when that third day came and my power came back on, literally, I was coming home from the hospital from charging batteries all day. I was wheeling up to my door and the porch light came on. So, I mean, I arrived at my door right when the power came back on, and there was this, palpable sigh of relief of, thank God, this thing is over. But, and I did feel all that relief. But as soon as word came that this outage was coming, I felt that anxiety just rush in again, just here we go again. And, I was talking to my mom this morning, in fact, about how I have to kind of rewire my brain and my expectations of life. Because if these PSPS events are kind of the new normal, I have to do some inner work to adjust to this new reality, because the anxiety is intense. This isn't like I'm going to lose a casserole in my fridge. This is I may not be alive tomorrow. And, it's real stuff, and it's traumatizing, it's terrifying. So I just bought a lithium-based battery backup system that will give me a buffer of time. And that setup was $3,600, and I make just enough on my retirement that I don't qualify for any forms of assistance. All of my home care is out of pocket. All of my medical, I mean, I have good insurance for stuff, but it doesn't cover battery backup and it doesn't cover home care. So all of those things are direct out of pocket. And, once I spend that money, I'm right back down into poverty level. So anyway, my system will be arriving tomorrow. But fortunately, Freed has this loader system in place where they're actually loading out the exact system I just bought. So Anna tagged me on social media and said, hey, while you're waiting for yours to come in, we can load you the exact same thing. So I went home today and installed that. And while I'm sitting here talking to you, I have ventilator batteries charging at home. So, but it's all speculative. I don't know exactly how much drain that's going to put on the battery backup system. We don't know how long this outage is going to go. They're already talking about another one right on the heels of this one. So, it's spooky stuff.
And so you're facing, depending on how well this lithium backup battery system works, and how long this outage is, possibly going back to the hospital to charge your devices again.
Yes, that's right. And, literally, I was sitting in a room at the hospital from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m., and that gave me exactly what I needed to leave and be on breath support from 5 p.m. till 10 o'clock the next morning so I could go back and do it all over again. So, I'm canceling physical therapy, medical appointments, although a lot of those aren't happening anyway because all the power's out. But, I mean, my full-time job on disability is maintaining my health. And during a power outage, everything gets put away because the only thing that is important is, am I going to be able to breathe, and am I going to have enough juice on my chair that I can move? So I mean, it really, that becomes life. Yeah.
Your daily task goes from maintaining your health to surviving, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I'm also very aware that comparatively speaking, I have it pretty good. I'm able to think clearly. I have a vehicle I can drive. I'm able to transfer myself in and out of my bed. I have a service dog. I have good equipment. I have a good support system of family and friends. In Nevada County alone, 1,800 customers are on medical baseline that are being affected by this outage. 1,800 people. To be on medical baseline, you have to have, medical needs that require electrical support. And I'm sure among those 1,800, I'm on the upper end of the curve in terms of my ability to take care of myself. You have to imagine that in that pool, there are hundreds of people that are in a way worse situation than I'm in. People who can't transfer out of bed. We heard from Anna here at Freed, somebody just phoned in after hours that has 6 hours of oxygen left today. That is going to run out at midnight tonight. Then what? And where does that person go? So, and I realize there's no magic pill to this situation we're in. PG&E is theoretically doing these PSPS events to save lives. But the situation in which we find ourselves, supposedly intended to save lives, is severely jeopardizing lives. And I don't know how you balance those one against the other, but that is the reality. we are gambling on saving lives by shutting off power. But by shutting off power, we are almost guaranteeing the loss of life. It's only a matter of time. I'm sure this strategy is going to cost people their lives. Over the many years that power outages have affected me at a survival level, I've made it a regular practice to get through to PG&E and talk to people, and I have learned how to do that. And over that same arc of time, and I'm sure there are hardworking, good people at PG&E, but it is very obvious from many phone calls over many years that the people within that structure don't fully understand the implications of what's happening out here for people with life support systems. They just don't get it. So coverage like this, I think, is really going to help open some eyes and shine a little bit of light into this corner of the world, because it's very real. And there are good people out here doing their level best to live full lives, to live independently, and to keep going at it every day despite physical realities that are pretty challenging. And power outages are not making that any easier. They're making it almost impossible. So, it's good that people find out about all this.
On Friday, the CPUC held an emergency meeting with PG&E, right?
Yes.
And in the public comment section, there was one woman who said, telling older people and people with disabilities to simply find a plan.
Yeah.
It's ableist, it's class tunnel vision. It speaks to them, like you said, just not really realizing what it's like on the ground.
Well, right. I mean, we all get the same warnings or alerts from PG&E, and they say, if you're on medical baseline, hit this link. And that link takes you to a place that says have a plan. It's like, golly, never thought of that. I should just put a plan together. And again, I have good insurance. I have all the equipment that's available for a person with my needs. But if you remove electrical power from that equation, good luck. And the system that I just bought has an added component over what Freed is loading out. I actually bought a kit that has solar panels that can replenish that. Now, for me to put up solar panels, I'm going to have to call in people to set those up, wire them to my device, all that. And I'm dependent on the angle of the sun and cloud coverage and, and weather. So, I think that will help me, but that doesn't solve the problem. Yeah.
Right. Is there anything else that you want to add that we haven't covered yet, or anything that you want PG&E to know that you haven't directly said?
Well, I would just say that, PG&E is in a no-win situation here. If they don't shut down power, fire hazard is worse. And if they do shut off power, lives will be lost. So I don't envy their position. And I think I've said what I would say directly to PG&E. It's not as simple as saying have a plan. And there has to be a more effective mechanism in place than charging stations that run 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. That is not going to get it done for people with equipment like I have. And again, there are people with equipment that is even more crucial and energy consuming and time sensitive. You think of dialysis machines, the breaking point in there is razor thin for some of us out here. And having a charging center at the local college, that would barely work for me. What about somebody who can't get out of bed? So, and again, I don't have the easy answer. But as we move into this new reality, PG&E as an institution needs to be much more deeply aware of the reality of life out here for people living with disabilities that require life support systems. Because the way that it's being handled now is not working. And I appreciate their efforts, I do, but it's not working.